For those of you who are joining us for the first time, thank you so much. We've had a couple of these panels already. And for those of you who are joining us for what is 3 of 4 panels, we appreciate having you back. And it's really a pleasure. As you can see, for some of you who maybe interviewed with me, or I'm in the main building of Cluet, I decided to change venues from the last couple of events, but I'm in my office, and it's a pleasure having you here. And again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is JP Burlington, Director of Admission and Class of 1995. So it's a privilege to be here in your midst, and thank you for your dedication to Trinity-Pawling and for you being a part of this. And of course, to our most recent alums of sorts, we'll have them introduce themselves in a little bit. But again, we for those of you on this call and for all of our accepted students, it was a fantastic season for us. We accepted a great group of young men who we hope will be joining us in September. There are obviously many, many great schools to choose from, whether it's at home or in a boarding school environment. And so we truly appreciate the families that are here with us, the families that have joined us before and will join us again to be a part of this. So it means a lot to us to be presenting this panel to you and these great, still young men. And without further ado, I will pass it on to Headmaster Bill Taylor to start with this group of great guys.
Great. Well, we just had a moment, a few minutes before all our guests arrived, and it was wonderful for me to see these guys. They all were my advisees, which meant that they were all prefects. Now at Trinity-Pawling, the prefect position is the highest position of leadership, and they're selected by their peers. They're selected by the whole student body and by the vote of the faculty as well. And every group of prefects, all the prefects are all sort of different from one another because they were elected because they embody in some aspect the ideals of the school, and what their job is to do is to lead the school. It's to anticipate what ways that that the school can grow stronger. They give me advice, and I am hopefully smart enough to take their advice, and I can also share with them aspects where I think that the school could grow, and I ask for their leadership to help the school grow. So it is the students' voice of the present day at the school, but also laying the groundwork for the future and how the school can continue to grow and thrive through their senior year, but then in the years to come. And each one of these alumni are, they're different classes, but they shared a very similar experience as being a prefect, and they all know what that experience is. I don't know what that experience is from a student perspective, but they know it, and they sort of help one another out too. And I know when alumni are back on campus, if there's a former prefect or a prefect coming back, there's a special bond with the current prefect. So it's great to see these guys again. And why don't we start with with Miles, and then we'll work our way through the I guess the most up to the most recent graduate. So Miles, let's begin with you and introduce yourself, please.
Miles Martin, class 2016. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a current senior at Sewanee, the University of the South in Sewanee, Tennessee, where I study political science. Wonderful. Just took my comprehensive exam on Saturday, so I'm done.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hunter.
I'm Hunter Olstein. I'm class of 2017. I'm from, and I currently go to Hamilton College. I'm a junior, studying history. So technically, I'm studying abroad right now, but
You're in Portugal, right? Where you were.
yeah, in my mind, I'm in Portugal.
Joe, why'd you say hello?
Is Joe frozen?
Oh,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
we lost
frozen.
Joe.
All
Am I
right.
good?
There we go. You're back.
Can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Joey Weber. I graduated in 2018. I currently am at the University of Vermont, and I'm studying community and international development and environmental studies.
Will.
Hello, everybody. My name is Will Rickert. I graduated last spring in 2019. I go to University of Vermont as well with Joe. I see Joe every day. We just did some homework together for our remote learning. I'm from Pawling, New York. I went to TP for 6 years. My brother went to TP also for all of high school. And my mother, who's Andrea Rickert, still works there today. So it's great to be talking to all of you.
Okay, well, I'm just going to throw some questions out there, and I will direct each question to one of you, and then, but others feel free to chime in too.
Sounds good.
So, Miles, let's begin with you. How did your Trinity-Pawling experience sort of evolve from your first year through your senior year, and now as a young alumnus?
I think notably, I was able to be at Trinity-Pawling for 4 years. That's unique in itself. I think what I hold on to most is I became very familiar with the campus, very familiar with TP being my home base for most of the year, which is funny because there are people who actually lived on campus. So, all right, Joey, I'm talking to you. That's something that changed. As a freshman, it was still a very new feeling almost through Christmas and Christmas break, of this weird and foreign place that I have to live at school. But when spring came around, I was adjusted. I had my people. I knew my resources. Come that senior year, I felt like I was a part of the campus, and I mean a part of the campus like Cluid is a part of the campus. And that 4-year journey really helped with that. As a young alum, it's really exciting. I have some great friends still. Some of the closest friends that I call today are people I met at TP. Yeah, I can't take that away from me. That's massive. And then as I enter this new professional stage, as a college senior, it's really cool being in interviews, being at job boards and whatnot, and having TP recognized because they went to TP themselves, or they went to Berkshire, or they went to this, that, and the other place. But I wouldn't have that connection to share that similar boarding experience had it not gone for TP. So that's something that I see a lot right now in my life as a young alum. That's the breakdown for me.
Great. Any other thoughts from any of you on that one?
Well, I think just listening to Miles is living at TP, which I forgot to mention, is I grew up on Trinity-Pawling campus since I was 3 years old. And I think when you grow up at a place like that, you have an idea of what your experience will be when you're there. And I think that trajectory I kind of had to make my own, starting in 7th grade, and just really carving out like the person I was. And I think that being there for so long and being integrated in the community in such a nuanced way allowed me to really find like what it was I wanted to do and the people I wanted to surround myself with. And I was able to do that with the help of the faculty and everyone around me and the good friends I made. But also you could see that evolution in hindsight, just year by year, just becoming more mature and growing and being comfortable with within your own skin and that sort of thing.
Great. Hunter, why don't you talk a
I
little
think
bit
going
about
off what Joe said, just
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I think just going off what Joe said, just and what Miles said, it does foster that kind of environment where you feel comfortable in your own skin, and you might be a little nervous at first, but as time goes on, you start to know everyone on campus, and that makes you a lot more willing to try new things and to because I mean, while I was there, I was fine making a mistake because I knew everyone around me knew me and knew what I could do. So it's a good environment to try new things.
Okay, Hunter, let's stay with you and talk a little bit about the all boys experience. What was that like for you? And was it what you expected it was going to be when you first started at Trinity-Pawling?
So I had a lot of expectations because I had 2 older brothers that went to the school, and my dad also went. So I kind of had been living around this environment, and I kind of knew from their experience about the kind of community that all boys fosters. It's just everyone. It really is a brotherhood when people talk about it, they're not lying. You get really close with a lot of the guys. You have a lot of time also to just focus on work. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but it's definitely true that you're a lot more focused. And I set my expectations. I was always looking forward to kind of going to TP. It was something I was very excited about, and I definitely got to foster a lot of relationships. Relationships that some of my brothers have with their friends, and I have some lifelong friends from it too. So it's a unique experience.
Anybody want to add on to that?
Yeah, just to go off of Hunter, I wasn't a boarding student. I was a day student. In regards to the all boys school issue that a lot of kids run into, like I would find myself like purposely wanting to like stay in the dorms, or purposely after practice, rather than drive home, I would stay and go to my buddy's room and play video games and do homework. And it was just natural, like the bond that I was building between these people, because we go to school together, we eat together, we play in the field together, we work out together, we study together, we do everything together. And through that, you create this bond that, like, especially after going through my first semester and half semester at college, like you establish these bonds with these people that it's very, very difficult to find in a different place. And it's just because of all these different aspects coming together, like this little bubble, like between all these kids coming from across the whole world with all these different ideas and beliefs, and it's a cultural melting pot. And it's almost impossible to not forge those extremely strong connections, where I found myself like just naturally wanting to stay with the boys and not go home.
Great. So let's see, Joe.
Yeah.
Talk about your transition from Trinity-Pawling to college and how that was. Were you prepared? What were you confident?
I mean, I don't think there's a doubt that Trinity-Pawling facilitated the skills I needed to be successful in a collegiate just setting, um, academically and socially, I think. And I just found myself already kind of knowing what to expect in terms of time management and taking risks and that sort of thing, which I had gotten so comfortable doing at Trinity-Pawling. I think academically, especially, I felt very prepared for the college platform. Public speaking came really easy to me in college in terms of presenting and speaking in front of like a big lecture or making announcements, all of which I had experience doing at TP. And then also the taking risks thing, which was big for me at TP. I got comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I was able to carry that over into college and try new things that I probably would have otherwise do, or study new topics that I otherwise wouldn't have studied. So.
I remember my first lecture class, like, I mean, coming from TP where my biggest class was 14 kids. I remember my first like lecture class, there was a question asked to everybody, and like not one person in the 250 person lecture wanted to say anything. But I was like, of course I'm going to raise my hand. Like I've talked in front of twice the amount of people with like twice as much at stake. Like, of course I'm going to answer this like simple question. And then I kind of just thought to myself, like, wow, like this is just one example of what TP has like just done for me, just made me comfortable, like talking in front of large groups of people just through, all those trusty dinners, like chapel talks, just all of that stuff. So that's one thing that I really, really realized after TP.
Great. Let's see here. I guess, Will, we'll start with you, and then others can chime in because I know you all have thoughts on this. Um, you know, while you're students, you talk about the brotherhood, and the boys are very protective of that term for good reasons, for important reasons. And being with you, Will, just describe what that meant for you as a student and what it means for you now as a young alumnus.
Yeah, so kind of just going on what I was saying before, especially with going through my first semester at college. Of course, I made friends. Of course, I established a good core group of people. But just looking back on the relations that I cultivated with people at TP, I really strongly feel now, like just looking back on it, that those are connections that are like almost impossible to build without the setting that TP has to offer you. I think it's just a mixture of all the different elements that TP provides for their students. Um, it's almost like when I try to like explain to people back, at school, like, oh, I went to an all boys school, like, you can't understand like the true meaning behind it if you're not there. Like it's something that you can only experience for yourself, and it's impossible to explain. Like, I mean, the other day I was on a FaceTime call with like 6 of the kids who I graduated with, and it was just like, it was as if we were just talking yesterday. Like it was just great.
Others want to jump in on that one, on the brotherhood?
I'll go. I just have something quick to say, which is that I think that that the term carries a weight because the people who are in that space are sharing an experience together, and it's that experience and it's those interactions that bring you together in such a substantial way. And I think in retrospect, it's almost an environment that may never happen again. And so when you're in it and when you're past it, there's so much value there. And just piggybacking off of Will, I mean, I was on a call the other day with some of my best friends from TP, and it's like we're picking it right back up. And I still go to them for help, and if I need someone to talk to, or and they come to me, and it's just kind of like we're all connected in a very, very special way, and it's almost sacred, just by virtue of that shared experience and those memories that we have to hold on to.
Right.
Well said.
I was seeking a whole new group of peers my age when my family and I decided to pursue a boarding school experience. I wanted new people. I wanted new people from all sorts of places I hadn't been myself. And I'm glad I got that. I was seeking new classmates. I was seeking new friends. And because there was a brotherhood that I was able to be incorporated into, and then had the opportunity to grow myself, it's a really positive part of my reflection on TP.
And I'll just throw some questions out for the group, and maybe just jump in or raise your hand. But you all were excellent leaders at Trinity-Pawling. Just talk a little bit about how your Trinity-Pawling experience helped develop your own leadership, and how this leadership continues to impact you and help you in college.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick answer. Just I think it's like really, really little things that you encounter in a college environment. Obviously, when you're at college, just like the one who says something when no one else is going to say something, or being smart about certain decisions. I'd always kind of like have a flashback back to TP when I was a prefect, and kids would come to me for help, or I would have to step in on a certain situation, and those kind of skills definitely trickled over into college when kids are making stupid decisions. I don't know, there was just kind of a level head on my shoulders after that kind of position of leadership that I had to pursue.
And even like at TP, there's a lot of times where you see someone that's maybe struggling a little bit, and someone needs to step out there and just go talk to them or check in on them. This happens in college too, and there's a lot of times where you see someone struggling or someone's acting a little different, and no one really says anything, complains. But I know like Joe, Mark, or Jordy and Mark, they're also at my school, but like you see a lot of times is like in our experience, someone's struggling, and you take that step forward and you say like, hey, how are you? Or simple things like that. And that's something that TP really teaches you. It's just like not necessarily complicated. Leadership isn't complicated, but TP teaches you it's just taking that step and just checking in on people, and really understand where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the opportunity to have different leadership roles within it. There's the leadership role that's more administrative of, okay, XYZ needs to be done, so get XYZ done. I think personally that might be I might have affinity for that type of role, and so I was able to have the opportunities to identify and learn to work with different learningship and listening styles. And sitting here at the end of my college career, watching people get their first exposure to it, right? It's not that I'm better than my classmates. I just got exposures 4 years before they did. And and that makes a world of difference. You just can't catch up if I'm 4 years ahead.
Yeah. I think that coupled with leadership at Trinity-Pawling is a sense of work ethic, and I think that has shown itself in several ways in college so far for me. Last year, as a freshman, I applied for a very intensive training program to lead backcountry skiing trips for the university. And that was a different type of leadership than I was used to. But I found myself still putting use the skills that I had been fostering at Trinity-Pawling for quite some time. And then into this year, I recently just applied to be a teaching assistant so taking those skills in academic setting. And I just think it goes to show kind of what Miles was saying, is that it felt like almost in a way going to college you had a one up, but it wasn't that you were better than anyone else. It was that, you just had the privilege to be exposed to that environment and have those experiences prior to college, which I think is very special. And, if you have the opportunity to do it, then it's amazing. I don't think there's anything better than feeling confident and feeling driven in terms of your studies and in social settings as well.
Will, did you want to add anything?
Perfectly said by both Joe and
Okay.
Perfectly said.
Well, you mentioned work ethic, Joe. Certainly one of a long-standing tradition at Trinity-Pawling is the effort system. How did that influence your experience at Trinity-Pawling, and then how was that a part of what you took from Trinity-Pawling in your life?
So I like to think of TP as you really do get as much as you put into it. And I felt like my time there was spent in a way that I was putting a lot into my experience. And so that was huge for me in terms of building that work ethic, and which was partly, systematic with the effort system. But I think early on, when I wasn't as captivated or engaged as a student, it was important for me to feel valued in a way that wasn't tallied by, what grade I got on my test compared to what everybody else got, but in a way that was recognizing I was working hard and that the progress would come, and that if I kept working hard, I would see the results on the other end. And then eventually, as I was evolving as a student, I saw those results, and it's rewarding to know that you can put that work in and you can get those results. But I think that also, even if you're not getting the numbers you want, you're seeing an appreciation for the time that you put in, because TP demands a lot of time from you, and it feels good to know that that time's being valued by the people around you.
Absolutely. To go off with Joe, I feel like TP just innately made me so conscious of my effort, putting my efforts towards everything, my just overall health, my academics, my music, all aspects of life. And when I would get, any sort of assignment at school, it was just programmed into me to just give it my absolute everything, no matter what. If it was just, whatever, a syllabus quiz or a huge exam, either or, it's just it was just natural for me to put my full effort towards it, because that's what, I was not trained to do, but it was just something that I really learned throughout the 6 years at TP.
Great. I guess I just have one more question, and then I'll turn it back over to Mr. Burlington. And he doesn't know I'm going to ask this question. You don't know I'm going to ask this question. But what was your favorite meal at Trinity-Pawling?
Chicken parm.
Chicken parm. I was just gonna say that.
Chicken parm.
Always chicken parm.
No, not the Thanksgiving meal or the candlelit meal
Oh,
or the
come
dinner
on.
after
do those
candlelight.
No.
Those
no.
are special. Those are special.
That
What?
chicken parm. Oh,
So I'll chime in here because back in my day, it was, and I ask the dining hall about this all the time, but they're just straight up chicken pucks. We used to have these fried. Mr. Taylor remembers it was almost every Wednesday. There would be the chicken pucks with a little slice of American cheese, probably Kraft or something, processed. A little ketchup, a little mayonnaise. You had about 4 of those before your soccer game,
wow.
and
Golden. You're golden.
you were set to go for the day.
Nothing better.
That's awesome.
It's funny.
Well,
But chicken parm. Chicken parm.
thank you, Miles, for the shout out for the Thanksgiving and the candlelight meals.
Yeah. Completely unrecognized, Mr. Taylor.
Okay, Mr. Burlington.
Sure. Well, before I start with a couple of questions from the audience, I do want to let everybody know that I should have been saying this before, but there is a Q&A button on your screen. And as we go through these questions, if anything has come up in your mind, please just throw out a question and I'll get to it if time allows. We are also cognizant of the amount of time everyone has been on a screen over the last couple of weeks. So we also don't want to keep too many of you here too long, although the 6 of us could probably reminisce for hours, but we understand it is a Wednesday night and there is school tomorrow for probably everybody. So a combination of questions have come up, and I'm going to actually grab a little bit from a couple of different questions. But, as you all mentioned, we have 2 6-year kids and then 2 4-year kids. So that is a lot of time at Trinity-Pawling. And I think one of the questions is speaking about the relationships between the younger students and also the older. So even though we don't have a 6-year span here, you all were in school together at one point or another. And the question basically is, can you speak about the relationships between the younger and older classmen? Are there cliques of any kind? Or are the older guys helping the others along? And also, can you speak also to how welcoming you are to, some of the PGs or maybe even the repeat juniors that come in, every year. So maybe I'll start with Will, seeing that you're the closest to being here, but just talk about the 6 years, the young and the old, and welcoming the others.
Well, one thing that really was beneficial for me was that my brother was a sophomore when I came in as a 7th grader. So he definitely took me under his wing. But even without my brother there, like as soon as I got to school, I mean, I naturally as a middle schooler, you look up to these big high schoolers, but I mean, you're right there with them. You eat with them. Like I was saying before, you practice with them, you play with them, and you establish these connections with them that, you wouldn't have in a regular high school. I mean, you have a little 7th grader, playing catch with a D1 committed college athlete or anything like that. I mean, it's just there's no separation between age and they're always going to, there's always going to be that kind of younger brother, older brother mentality. And then, then you progress to be that older brother. And then, you will do the same thing for whatever kid comes in when you're a senior. It's just, that will always be there. And I saw that throughout my entire 6 years.
I think that, Mr. Burlington, as soon as you asked that question, I was just reflecting, looking at Miles and our experience on the soccer field. And I mean, I remember being younger and going into preseason as a 7th grader and looking up to Miles as he was naturally filling that role as a leader on the field. And I think I can definitely support what Will's saying, but in another realm, I guess, is leadership and looking up to older kids on the sports field. And that's what happened with me, I think, a lot. And just, I mean, it's special Miles is right here, so I can talk about it. It was important for me to see that leadership with somebody who was older than me. And then when my time had come, I had learned the things from the people who were there before me. And I was ready to pass that on. And I think that taps into what Mr. Taylor was saying about when you're at TP and you're about to graduate, you're trying to lay down the foundation for the present while building a future. And I think part of building that future comes with setting an example for younger kids and going out of your way to build relationships with kids who are younger.
I remember it.
Even in like the club scene. No, you go, Miles. You go. You go.
Thanks, Hunter.
Sorry, Miles.
We all live together. I think that makes a very big difference. Upperclassmen live with freshmen, and that makes a big difference. All right, there is no going into an only senior hall. That's not going to happen. So you'll have that exposure simply because they're right down the hall, right? That's now your neighbor in addition to your classmate. And that changes the dynamics in an important way for me as a 4-year kid. Is a 4-year kid who decided to stay in the same building for 3 years as well. Is that my neighbors that changed around me, right? Me and my roommate were this staple in our dormitory, but we had new juniors come in, and we were like, come on in. And so that dynamic of, hey, you'll have an experienced guy who's going to lead in the role as a proctor, is what we call them on campus. And they're sitting there, they're waiting and expecting new people to come in. And that's kind of why they take that role in the dormitory, is to help that integration process.
Hunter, I'm going to throw a question right at you. It's a combo of a little bit of both. So a lot of you played multiple sports. A lot of you were involved in more than just academics and sports, but music and theater. And so there's a combo question again. I apologize to those who asked it, but I'm combining some things here. But how did those coaches or those teachers, the faculty, especially music for Will and Joe and Hunter in the theater, and Miles, of course, athletically, but how did they impact your experience at Trinity-Pawling? Those people that you spent so much time with, and also as a secondary to that, you were all extremely busy on campus, and yet you also completed your work in an unbelievable fashion. How did you balance it all? And did you find it hard doing so? So anybody can go for that, because I know it's.
Yeah. I mean, the coaches at TP, they're not just your coaches. They're also your dorm parents and your teachers. I know my cross-country coach was also my history teacher and the head of my Model UN club I was in. Or Mr. Dorr, who was I was proctoring in his dorm on our freshman dorm, and also my squash coach. And you get a really close relationship with these teachers. They become almost like family to you. And they really look after you, and they definitely help. They push you and they hold you accountable throughout. It's something throughout the whole day too. And this is a daily thing. You're always seeing them. So it's nice to have those people there. You can always think about like how are my actions reflecting on myself, and am I holding myself up to the standard that these people are holding me to? And then when it comes to balancing studies and clubs and sports, TP it has its schedule where you always have time for sports, and then from there you go to dinner, and then from there you have a whole bunch of time to study. So the schedule is set out to help you there. And also it has a lot of freedom within it too. Especially with clubs, you can decide how many clubs you do. I mean, you have to do, it's still 2, right? You have to do a minimum of 2? Yeah. So you have to do a minimum of 2, but you can also, I mean, you can do as many as you want to fit. I know Miles did Phoenix, but he also did theater as well, or Will did music. So there's time for everything. And TP kind of, it schedules out so you have time to balance all of that. Yeah.
Well, I think, it's funny, I always think back to my time in my junior year. My advisor told me I was burning the candle at both ends. And I don't know if that phrase had been used for you guys, but one of the struggles for me was trying to be involved in too much, because there's so much that you can do on this campus. Whether obviously there is time for athletics, but it was always for me a struggle, because I wanted to be involved in theater and music and clubs, and there were some times where I actually had luckily my teachers were there for me to kind of push me back. Oh, don't forget, we do have to go to school here, even though, because I think that's a huge part about the balance of college as well, is that because you've been able to balance so many things here, you're able to also continue to do that at the college level as well. So in terms of balancing all of that, and also the workload, we talk about extra help a lot in the admissions process. And when you are on a boarding school campus as a day student and as a boarder, talk about the availability of your teachers. And, was there ever a time that you felt like you were asking too much of them in certain instances, because they live, we're 24/7 students and faculty. So just talk about the extra help and the faculty that are around you.
Yeah, I can definitely speak upon this. So I took Latin for 5 years with Mrs. Pearson, and Latin was a definitely difficult subject for me. And it got to a point where, I would be calling Miss Pearson like at least, this is no joke, at least like 3 times a week, sometimes three times in one night. And every single time she was more than glad to answer any questions I had. And then, just thinking about like Mr. Kellogg, I remember when I took a science class with Mr. Kellogg, I was like having a very, very hard time. And, I emailed him, and I was actually at school, and he's like, come over, like we'll figure it out. So I had dinner with him, and we figured it out. And that's just 2 examples of how accessible they are and how they're just there to help you. They're there on campus. That's their job. And and not only just school too. I would talk to these people about all of my life problems, and it became so much more than just teachers. I think about, I tell my friends at school, like, yeah, like I would call my teacher on the phone like all the time, like for help, and they'd look at me like, what, like you called your teacher? And like that was just something that I was so used to, and something that you can't really get at a different school.
I think I can speak to just back kind of to the idea of stretching yourself thin. I think I made a habit of that at TP, and I was almost in shock when I got to university, because it's impossible to do it in a way that you're able to at Trinity-Pawling. And I think I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I don't know how I got everything done, but somehow you find a way. And I think the key to that is leaning on the people around you, which brings me to the next point, which is the extra help, which was absolutely major for me as a student. I mean, just in terms of anecdotes, I mean, I can remember taking an AP biology test after theater rehearsal that got out at 11 o'clock at night. And I spent 2 hours on the floor of the lounge taking this test with Mr. Keel. And he was right there by my side the whole time. And it was like this moment of, I cannot believe that a faculty member would allocate their time in a way that allowed me to do that. And it's that unconditional support that gets you through the management of the expectations that people hold you to at TP, but also that you begin to hold yourself to. So.
Guys, thank you so much. Oh, Miles.
Ooh,
for it.
I'm so sorry.
Nope.
I love extra help. I love how readily available it was. I got to a point where I am now shameless in asking for help.
Yep.
And that has allowed me something else. I know very specifically what I need to thrive in an environment. And that's moving forward, right, for anybody. That's not how I evaluate any of my opportunities. Is okay, do I have what I need to thrive in this environment? And it's because extra help was available. It's because extra help was encouraged. I didn't like going to extra help as a new student. Didn't like it, and I didn't like it, but I trusted my advisors to say, hey, Miles, just keep going. And I now know, hey, I didn't like it because I don't like doing my work with my professors. What I prefer is doing all of my work for a week and going specifically back in reverse order. Like, that's just how I need to do chemistry class, you know? And it's just being in the environment and having the wherewithal myself to be like, okay, let me trust the help around me, and then I'll find out what that particular path works best for me. That's my 2 cents.
Just quickly, also, one thing that I've really realized is like through how accessible this extra help was, it really taught me how to just talk to professors and teachers. And I especially noticed this just when I would see other students interact with their professors, and it was just like very unnatural. And just I found myself possessing this quality of just being very concise and just able to get across to them and have a mature conversation and like get across to them what I need help with. And I think that's something that I really value. But another thing that, this is just a side note, that I realized is that like this connection that I've built with my teachers through TP, it's taught me how to write an email, which so many kids at school and college, and I'll see their emails that they write, they don't know how to write emails professionally. And it's something that really annoys me. And that's one thing that I really thank TP for, is how to write an email and respond to emails promptly.
Perfect. Well, guys, as I said, we probably could be here all night, but Mr. Taylor has given us the thumbs up as job well done. And I thank you for taking the time out of your evening to be a part of this. And I'm sure we'll be reaching back out to you for other opportunities. But also thank you to the families that joined us again. And we do have one more panel tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Once again, where we will be from this group of guys to the next group of prefects, another great group of young men who have stepped in these guys' shoes at Trinity-Pawling as leaders, as athletes, as artists, And so please tune in again tomorrow night for that. But once again, thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this. And Bill has one more thing. Go ahead.
I just wanted to also add my thanks to you all, those watching, those participating, but to these young alums that I've spent the last 45 minutes with. You know, these have been crazy, crazy days and weeks, you know, as we sort of transition to this. But seeing you all together and spending this time has been the highlight of the last 3 or 4 weeks for me. So that'll give me energy to move on. So thank you for that.
Me too, Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I feel that too.
Well, thanks again. And everyone, please stay safe and healthy. And we look forward to the next time we all meet again. Have a great night.